So I'm not going to be doing episode-by-episode reviews on Rings of Power. I can barely stand watching the show, and I don't really want to give Amazon any views. Most of which I do watch, I watch through third parties and other reviewers, etc., so I can make sure I don't give Amazon a single view for my participation in this. My goal here is mostly focus on the thematic qualities and why Rings of Power is not Tolkien, why it's not Lord of the Rings, and it seems like it's very intentionally anti-Tolkien in a lot of ways. I kind of feel a moral obligation to kind of defend Tolkien from what appears to be a kind of social engineering scam to undo or rewrite or at least hijack his fame for someone else's political purposes. And today what we're going to be talking about is Numenor. Numenor is a pretty major part of the Second Age. Is one of the probably biggest events aside from the Forging of the Rings themselves. Now, let's start with what Numenor is in Tolkien's writing. Let's do an overview of the entire story there. See, the original Dark Lord was Morgoth, and when he was defeated, the humans who had helped fight in that war were given a special island to themselves. And that island was Numenor. It was literally raised out to the sea by the gods just for them. And now, see, the layout of the entire world here is Middle-earth. The continent that's actually referred to as Middle-earth is kind of on the east side. And out to the west, there is the Undying Lands. And Numenor was kind of in the middle, and I think it was a little more to the west there. But it was closer to the Undying Lands, but not all the way there. And so the Numenorians settled there, and so they had like this special place for themselves, and they ended up having longer, kind of like blessed with longer lives, so they would live to like 100, 200, something like that. But they were still not immortal. They couldn't actually go all the way to the Undying Lands. That was still reserved specifically for the gods and the elves. And over time, what happens is they develop a sort of envy. An envy of the elves' immortality. So when Sauron rises to power in the back in Middle-earth, the Numenoreans actually sail back to Middle-earth and they defeat Sauron. While Sauron has the ring, they actually defeat him in battle and they take him prisoner. But over time, Sauron corrupts the Numenoreans kind of from the inside out, and he turns them against the elves. And eventually, he actually has them like performing human sacrifices and worshiping Morgoth, and they form an army and they actually try to invade the Undying Lands. They think they can just conquer the Undying Lands or just take immortality for themselves. It just doesn't actually work that way. You can't just force your way into the Undying Lands and become immortal. But it doesn't matter. They don't understand that. They've all been corrupted by Sauron, and they try to invade. And then the gods respond by completely destroying Numenor. The entire island is just sunk to the sea, and that's the end. And it was the faithful. This is where Isildur and some others, they actually escape because they had refused to turn on the elves and the gods, and they end up becoming the people who found Gondor and all that, etc. And so, see, the story of Numenor is kind of like, it's very Atlantean, has an obvious Atlantis parallel of a highly advanced culture that's destroyed, sunk to the sea, and it's got this whole message of like the hubris of mankind. And it's a very cautionary tale, because Numenor, they were originally the blessed people. They're the great ones, the ones who did great good in the world. They helped fight evil. But that didn't make them immune to evil. And in the prosperity, they became corrupt and evil, and they collapsed on themselves. And so it's kind of a relevant story there. But let's look at what we have in Rings of Power so far. And now, at the time of this recording, we're only a few episodes in, but nothing is looking very promising. What we have here is Numenor's already completely anti-elf for some reason that's not explained. Even Galadriel doesn't seem to know. No, the show doesn't offer us a reason why they're already anti-elf. But when one elf shows up as a castaway, it prompts some sort of anti-elf rally, and they're saying, oh, they're going to take our jobs, and, well, they're right. Yeah, sure, if the elves were to do a mass immigration to Numenor, yeah, they'd be better at everything. They're immortal, they're highly skilled, they have, like, magic-like abilities, and by all means. But the elves, in Tolkien's lore, the elves never tried to settle on Numenor. They didn't want to settle on Numenor. Why would they want to? They have a better place. The Undying Lands is a bigger territory. They have all their great stuff over there. All the best stuff is over there. In Tolkien's writing, the whole point was that the Numenorians were envious of the greater blessing the elves seemed to have. But so far, in Rings of Power, it's like what? Some sort of self-defense? Like, oh no, the elves are going to come to take our stuff? I'm sorry, it's not how it works. The elves are not trying to immigrate to Numenor. They never tried to do that in Tolkien's writing. And even in Rings of Power, elves are not trying to come to Numenor. One elf shows up, and they're like, oh no, the elves are going to take our jobs. It doesn't make sense. Even if you ignore Tolkien's lore, which the show's doing that anyway, and you just look at how they're presenting Numenor in the show, this elves are taking our jobs perspective is completely insane. It makes no sense. No elves are trying to do that. No elves would want to try to do that. Again, even by their own arguments. The elves are tireless. They're better workers. They do everything better. Yeah, that's right. So why would they come here? Why would they come to Numenor? So I don't know. Other than some sort of a forced political allegory about modern day politics, I have no idea why they included that scene. Just clumsy attempt to try to explain why there's elf-human tension that doesn't make any sense in the context. And then, of course, the queen regent there, she's like, well, let's get this elf out of here. And then she's like, well, never mind, let's just do whatever the elf says and send the nation to war, even though it might cause a civil war by doing this. And I don't know. So much of the show is just generally bad writing. It's hard to tell what is a thematic failing and what's just a writing failure. So the concern here is one of the major themes of the Second Age, the Fall of Numenor. And I have no idea what Rings of Power is doing with it. Does it look at all to you like they are going to come to a message about the hubris and pride or turning against the gods? Well, we don't even know. The gods are barely mentioned. The elves are portrayed in such a bizarre fashion that why would you... I mean, as an audience watching the show, I have no idea why I would care about the elves or the Numenorians. What do either of them stand for? What does it mean to betray the elves? What do the elves stand for? Again, in Tolkien's writing, there was this obvious, corruption of Sauron. There's this reverting to basically some kind of satanic religion where they started doing human sacrifice, and there was some clear corruption, and there was this hatred of the elves on the grounds that the elves had what they wanted. They wanted to take it from the elves if they could take it. But what do we have here? Now, we're early in the show, and I get, again, maybe they'll have somewhere they're going with it, but we haven't seen the corruption. Like, so much of the show, they just kind of tell us some things without showing us what's happening. We're just told that Numenor's already anti-elf. And according to the show, they've been anti-elf for generations, with no explanation of why. And if they can't capture one of the major themes of the Second Age, then what are they doing? If we're an opportunity to see a prosperous great nation corrupted from the inside and brought to its own doom, if that's not the story they're telling, then what are they telling? I don't know. I don't have much faith that they're going anywhere with this, and I'm certainly don't have the patience to wait 5 seasons to find out if they're going to make sense in anything they're doing. Heck, I've already lost patience with this season. I mean, we're hit the more than halfway mark, and plot progressed nowhere. Thematically, everything's set up, and themes that should be already there aren't there at all. What themes they're replacing it with either are non-existent or don't make sense. So I don't know, you tell me. What do you think? Do you see anything that makes sense about how they portray Numenor? So if you have any hope whatsoever of this show somehow turning around, or Anything thematically making sense here, let me know down in the comments, and I'll catch you next video.